partner, since the two countries have many things in common. And Rwanda made a miraculous turnaround in the last 24 years. You know that from an almost failed state to one of the fastest growing economies on the African continent. The people are united now. We know that the environment are very clean. And what's the secret of your successful governance? That's our readers want to know. And would you like to share with us your understanding of choosing a development path that suits its national conditions? Yeah, that's the first question.
Yes.
The second is...
well, maybe I answer that and then you ask...
okay.
The second, yeah. First, our country has a mixed history. The history where, well, like any other African developing country, long time ago, poor governance and, people staying in the state of poverty and mismanagement of politics for a long time until now close to 25 years when things changed. And they changed because there was a struggle, there was a process to change things. So that struggle informed us as to how we should proceed with the management of country's politics and every aspect of the life of our people. So that's really where the development process and what you see we are trying to do today originates from. So it's not miraculous as such, but it's because all along we had our Rwanda Patriotic Front, which has been behind the changes deliberately in our country through that struggle. And we have remained true to ourselves, where when we said we wanted to transform our country, our society, and develop it, we meant to do that, and we have been doing that for these nearly last 25 years, as I said. So that's what is responsible for continued economic growth. That is also what has contributed to continued stability, and that's what has also encouraged a very strong partnership between Rwanda and China, and we have benefited from China's support. China has supported our social and economic programs in many areas, and that has continued to lead to continued strengthening of the relationship between our two countries. Recently, we had the opportunity and enjoyed the benefit of hosting the President of China, Xi Jinping, visited our country. It gave us an opportunity to discuss continued strengthening of our friendship and cooperation. And even beyond Rwanda and China, it has also related to the strong relationship that exists between China and the whole of Africa. Today, Rwanda holds the chair of the African Union, and through that we have also continued to champion this kind of cooperation that benefits different players in the partnership. Now, to the second aspect of the first question you asked, which is also the development path and model we have chosen which is built on the specific conditions of our country, this is what should be the case. In fact, we've been carefully making choices about how we conduct our development, and we cannot just pick development models of other countries and impose them on our situation, but there is a lot to learn from different development models from other countries, from other places, and then we see what works for us or what fits in our conditions. But our conditions, our specific situation is what we start with and from, and then we see how we fit in lessons learned from other places. So we have emphasized that, and we so far, through the partnership, through learning from others, and through working very hard and governing properly and involving our own people and investing in them has for sure been at the center of the sustainable growth we have registered over many years.
Thank you.
Yes, when we had the opportunity to host Xi Jinping, President of China, in Rwanda last July, we discussed a number of areas through which we could cooperate. And we agreed a number of things, and that China is going to support Rwanda in, including health, infrastructure, even education, trade and investment. These are very key for our development. It is the roads, it is the railways, it is the construction of different types of infrastructure, whether it is energy in the energy sector or different things that matter for development. This is definitely one way through which we develop, but also strengthen our cooperation with the different countries, but in this particular case with China.
Ms. Kagami, my question is about bilateral. What are the highlights of bilateral cooperation so far, and what's your expectations?
Well,
maybe several words.
Several words. I was trying to look for one word, but very strongly what comes up in my mind is a productive kind of partnership and cooperation that benefits both Rwanda, and hopefully we can benefit China as well, because China does a number of things with different countries across the world, and Rwanda can play our part, whether it is in trade, it's in investments, but through cooperation we have realized that this is the best way to go, and China and Africa have a lot we've been doing together, and Rwanda being part of Africa, and as I said earlier, this time around Rwanda plays an important role in Africa, where we hold the chair for 1 year of the African Union. So it enables Rwanda to participate in matters in the broader terms that bring together Africa and other countries, especially in this case Africa and China, even if then also that benefits our bilateral cooperation between China and Rwanda. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship between Rwanda and China, and Rwanda and Africa and China. So mutually, every party benefits from that.
And my next question is about Belt and Road Initiative. This year marked the 5th anniversary of the initiative. And Belt and Road cooperation will also be a major topic at the Beijing summit. During President Xi's visit, you said that the Belt and Road Initiative has provided opportunities for Rwanda and Africa for further development. And how will Rwanda work with China within the framework in order to bring benefit to the people of both countries? And what are the priority areas for cooperation?
Belt and Road is a very good concept of cooperation and development. We see industrialization take place. We see development of infrastructure. We see matters of green economy take their central role in addressing overall the climate change. We see all types of cooperation covering a number of countries and initiated by China. It goes all the way and brings into the fold the whole continent, or a big part of the continent of Africa, and which involves Rwanda as well. So each country in the Belt and Road framework finds a place for its own development, and we are happy about that. And we want to continue encouraging it and working together as countries involved in Belt and Road. We see that it's a clear framework. It embraces a lot of countries. Development takes place, and people benefit. So it's up to every component or every part of that development framework to play our own role as well in our specific areas to make sure that we contribute to the overall development. And so far, so good. I think we can only encourage that to happen.
My next question is related to the FOCAC, and that's why you come here. And how do you evaluate the FOCAC? And what is your expectation towards this Beijing summit? And we know that new measures will be introduced to promote China-African cooperation. And which of them are most interested by Rwanda?
So China-Africa cooperation, again, is a very good framework that enables a number of things to happen between China and Africa, and it has happened for a number of years now. We have seen China make huge investments with Africa, and each African country, or most of them, benefiting and benefiting China as well in that cooperation. And what has happened in this framework of cooperation has really touched different and developed different aspects of life of the African countries and the people. As I said, whether it is in the area of health, in the area of education, in the area of infrastructure, we have seen industrialization take place. Sometimes there is confusion. One, in the management of all that, or those activities that take place, people may not do everything right. as expected. But that does not in any way disqualify the framework in which everybody otherwise largely benefits. So if we don't realize what we were expected to realize from the cooperation, it's not one party that is always wrong. It's that, as happens naturally, things need to be worked on and improved, and so progress is made. I think, one, largely, it's a very good framework of cooperation. Secondly, we need to keep examining what works for us and what works well and what hasn't been working well, and then we improve it. But overall, the framework is a very, very good type of cooperation that we would want to see and continue encouraging. And for Rwanda, we are happy. We can continue to cooperate with China and in the framework of China-Africa dialogue and partnership. And we have, each of our countries in Africa are mindful of improving their own countries' governance systems and policies, and identifying what really we need to do and how we need to do it. I think that increases the benefits and the quality of the partnership. And that's what we do. We have done our best, and we have also seen good progress.
And do you have some specific expectation about President Xi's speech?
The expectation is already we have laid a foundation, I think. A good foundation has been laid. And President Xi, what I'm sure when he comes to Africa, when he has interacted with the African leaders, I think it serves a good purpose, that people, when they are discussing, we are able to identify the areas of needed improvement, or can we even do more than we are doing. So I expect that, one, there would be consolidation of what is already being done for the last several years. And secondly, I'm sure within this forum today taking place here in Beijing, in China, we should be able to identify, there even other areas, more areas that actually can be touched to accelerate what we are doing and the benefits that come out of that. I think the expectation is consolidation and even doing more and better. There is doing more, there is also doing better, because you say this thing didn't work as well as we wanted, didn't give the maximum benefit as we expected, so we can do things that will improve that. Or then, is this enough, what we've been doing? Are there possibilities for doing more? Then we can do more. I think these will be the kinds of discussions, in my view, and this is what we want to contribute to in terms of what will be discussed during the forum.
And I want to know that President Xi has mentioned, has proposed the community of people's, community of common destiny. And what's your understanding of that?
Well, my understanding of that, which makes sense, is it doesn't matter the distance between China and Rwanda or China and Africa. At the end of the day, we are all driven by same aspirations. We want development. We want stability. We want also to make sure that the world we live in, this planet, is taken good care of. So it's a broad concept in my understanding that says it doesn't matter China, Africa, Rwanda, other parts of the world. We may be in different parts of the world, we may be driven differently for different things, but at the end of the day, there is something we share. We share development, everybody's aspiration is about development. We share this planet. It talks to the health of this planet in terms of what we see underlying the climate change that affects every country. Is there anything we can do together to make sure that we contribute to this good health of our planet? So there's that common destiny. There's where we are headed. One thing happens in China, at the end of the day, it affects Africa. Or one thing happens in Africa, and it may affect China's well-being. So there is that thinking together, coming together, and that's my understanding.
And my question is about some actions should do to deal with them.
Well, I think there will be always criticisms about anything anybody does. So for China, I hope some of the criticisms, I guess, are aimed at discouraging China doing what it is doing, say with Africa, or discouraging Africa to do what it is doing with China. But this is why I said, if what we are doing primarily is driven by what we think we can achieve together, that is useful for our development, then we should stick to this and make sure that we are doing the best we can for ourselves and we are doing the right thing. So we can keep examining just between us, Africa and China, and say, is what we are doing being done the right way? Are we getting the good results we want? And then through that discussion, we can keep making any adjustments or corrections that need to be made so that we are always maximizing on the benefit we get from that, right? Now, if it is about debt, it's how you manage debt. For example, yes, I have had the same criticism. Say, Africa is being choked with debt from China. That means they're having too much debt, or they are borrowing too much, meaning Africa is getting too much from China in terms of debt, or China or Africa is borrowing too much. That's one aspect. But there's another aspect. Maybe Africa is getting no debt at all from the other side who are making criticism. But debt is part of the development process. But if you are saying, the other ones who are making criticism are saying, no, you are getting too much from China. Well, but it is also maybe we are getting too little from you. And whether in terms of debt or even grants. So Africa cannot stay where it is for the last 30 years or 40 years. We need to invest, we need to be productive, we need to borrow and be able to pay back, depending on where you invest your money. So I don't think this criticism is fair, nor should it discourage us from working together, Africa and China, and including how much that is being invested in Africa by China in terms of debt, which debt Africa should account for properly and use it, and Africa deserves to have, to borrow. But to borrow for what? You borrow for productive investments you want to make that will develop the continent, will develop Rwanda, and should enable you to pay back where you borrowed from. Because borrowing is not unique between China and Africa. Borrowing is across the world. There is no country that doesn't have debt. None. Not a single country that is not indebted one way or the other. But it is a debt to do something to enable you to pay later on. But it is debt that puts in your hands money, financing that you did not have or you could not get otherwise. So the problem about neocolonialism or this or that, I think it's just dramatizing issues and the situation so that you discourage people doing what they want to do for themselves. But of course, countries have to be careful about debt. You don't want to borrow too much that in the end you are even strangled by the debt, or it ends up being counterproductive. Absolutely, we need to avoid that. But that comes from being conscious and careful and knowing what you are borrowing for and whether it is really what is going to give you the capacity to grow as fast as you wanted, avoiding the negative effects of that. But that is something that is achievable. That is something you can calculate and say, yes, I want so much, and there is opportunity here for me to borrow for this I want to do, but there is only this gap within which I can borrow so that I don't go beyond that. So for me, the final thing is Africa needs to know what it wants also. And by that we shall prove to everybody that we are not just a continent to be taken advantage of blindly, as if we also don't know what we want. So those who are making those criticisms, it's like they are saying, you know, Africa is a place anybody goes to and just rips them off as they want, and they go away with everything. No, it's up to us also to say, no, Africa is a place that is ready to do business, to transact with any part of the world, and this is what we want, and this is the best way to achieve it. And we are capable of sitting with any partner and say, this is what we want. And then together, we see how each party will achieve what it wants.
Yeah. And about AU, you are now rotating chair of AU, and you are championing institutional reform in AU. What's your primary goal of this reform? And what are the priorities for China-Africa cooperation?
The AU reform has been very important, and it's taking place. It's making good progress. It was probably needed much earlier than the time it came, but it's never too late to make some of these good steps. What Africa is trying to achieve, one, it's trying to achieve unity, and there's a lot of strength in unity, coming together, working together. The second is to try and, be independent in our actions, therefore even financing our own activities, so that we don't do things just like the earlier thing you brought up, just by depending on others to finance everything we do, or to keep borrowing endlessly. And no, but yet Africa has certain capacities, even if it will still need some support from other areas. But really we have resources to do a big chunk of what we need to do, and then the gap remaining to be filled, we can rely on our friends and partners like China and so on. Or do it in a way that China can fill the gap that there is, and we can be able to pay back to China, so that it's not just depending and burdening, giving a burden to China for our own good or for our own operations. So we should be able to take care of ourselves to a great extent, if not entirely at some point. So that is, it's about reform. Then the third aspect of it is to try and be efficient and effective in the way we manage our own affairs. So that when we were talking about all this, the cooperation with China or with other parts of the world, what we get from there should be utilized the best way we can to keep growing and going forward, and stop the stagnation that has been there on our continent for a long time. And I think this reform process fits in very well with the cooperation Africa has with China. China has been available, has been supporting Africa or African countries differently and different countries for a long time. There is that whole history. But I think it is fair to say that much as China has been there for Africa in many ways and for a long time, you don't want to, Africa does not want and does not need to keep being a burden to a partner on a permanent basis. We should benefit from what the partner can provide for us, and then build our capacities and grow, and then the partnership becomes more meaningful than if we just have to depend on one party has to depend on the other forever. So we are looking to China to strengthen us, to strengthen Africa in this quest for independence, for efficiency, for unity of the continent as we seek it, and as also, above all, what is supported by all this is the development we want for Africa, and the stability that will enable that to happen.
And would you mind answering one more question? Summit will send the world a signal?
I think it should. I think definitely it will, one way or the other. And it's important. I think the good question you brought up is, it comes at the time it comes in a form of cooperation. It emphasizes how countries, continents can work together. And it comes at a time when there are these issues to be discussed. Indeed, we see the breakdown of the process of globalization that has been taking place, where it doesn't matter which part of the planet you are in, you find people working together. There has been crisscrossing of this cooperation from one part of this world to another in a certain way that is seamless and has been meaningful. But then of late, you have also seen some entities, some countries withdrawing from that and saying this it's for me and only for me, and the others come later, and or they may not come at all. Definitely, this forum for China-Africa cooperation has come at the right time. I think there is more need for cooperation now than ever before. And the fact that it is happening and being emphasized also at a time when there is this sort of breakdown in global cooperation is very important, absolutely. Yeah. Good. Oh, okay. Not more questions. Remove this. Thank you.
Seven, 10 to 11.